Hello, my name is Father George Salzman of the Harvard Catholic Center of St. Paul's Parish in Harvard Square. It has been a remarkable week. I was talking to a product of our medical school now afar and at the end of his residency as a doctor, and he was saying he was in tears several times this past week as we all were hearing of what had happened in Minneapolis. And I refer you especially to the statements of Cardinal Shawn here in Boston and of Pope Francis about George Floyd, in the killing of George Floyd by police officers, which, as Cardinal Shawn says, is judged the police force and now soon will judge the courts. Because what happened was not an isolated incident. There are many other incidents of this sort which all tie together in this. Narrative has been repeated across the country through time, and its history is well documented. But in some sense, we sort of turn our eyes aside. We have a certain blindness, and to some extent we don't listen to the cries of our sisters and brothers. And so it's in that racism that Pope Francis calls us to finally face and to take seriously, and to be concerned for those who've been excluded. In his last visit here, Pope John Paul II talked about not only being pro-life, but being fully pro-life. That is to say, to end the scourge of racism and the exclusion of anyone from everything we have. We see that particularly now at the time of this major health crisis that we face, where those who are particularly harmed are those at the margins, both in terms of healthcare and also in housing, and also in job opportunities, and finally in resources, which sets everything else off so unequally. We're here in a historic place. George Washington can actually stay here. We can think of the Declaration of Independence in 1776, but then the Constitution in 1787, so different. All people are created equal, and then suddenly the mention of slavery and as acceptable in the Constitution itself. How important for us to face our history, as Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said, and how important to bring alive the promise of the Declaration of Independence. The President Faust, the Civil War historian, our previous president of Harvard College, was made sure to include this plaque, and that is to mention that here in Wadsworth House, there were enslaved persons who worked first for President Wadsworth, Titus and Venus, and then Juba and Bilhah for President Edward Holyoake, and the importance that they be given their dignity and their names. There was a great audience when this was unveiled, and among them Representative John Lewis, who was at the heart of the civil rights marches, and actually by a policeman's billy club had his skull split open. And so he said how important to give them finally, after centuries, their dignity, and how important after centuries to give not only them a dignity, but all of our brothers and sisters in this country. Amen.